Wow. See, mind blown again. Just right at the end of the broadcast, Aboriginals slam home some absolute mind blowers. I mean, that is clearly a giant hopper, isn't it? One of the big hoppyman. Hi, you're with Scott. Welcome to the stream. It's midnight. It's always midnight. This is your right ear and your left ear. And today we're going to be talking about prehistoric art. So let me just whack up a picture of that. I like it at the start when there's nobody here. Here I am, popped up on the old internet. We're going to be doing art history one day a week because I want to learn all about art history. And if I'm going to be sitting here and doing a stream all the time, I'd like to share that on stream. So that's a good enough reason as any. I find it interesting that I was looking for a timeline of world art, and what I found were timelines of world art. If we get onto old Ecosia, and let's just quickly timeline. Look, there's loads of it. I can't even fit it on the screen so you can read it. That's history. I mean, there's been a lot of it. And humans have been making art since early doors. So I was thinking there'd be a timeline of art, but there's not. There's timelines of world art, and it's interesting that they're in these different categories. Of course, as the timeline progresses from cavemen, cave women, cave people, non-binary, like cave people, right? As the timeline progresses, then things will overlap and interweave. But in the early stages, most of these timelines are independent. Africa, Asia, Americas, Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific, Europe and the Middle East. So it's interesting that we've got these different timelines. So there's 6 different categories for us to look at. And in today's episode, overall, we're going to look at all of everything. Hopefully, that's the aim. Let's look at all the art. Let's have a good old look at it. See where it all came from and how it happened, in what order. And I'll try and do it in order. That makes sense, doesn't it? I'm learning at the same time as you are. We learn together. And it's just going to be really interesting and low-key and just cool. So, yeah, it's interesting that we've got these 6 different categories. And I expect after our overview, which we're going to do today, of prehistoric art, we'll be able to come to these different categories. And I imagine they all start at slightly different points. I haven't looked yet, so we'll do that later. We're starting today. This looks really scuffed, doesn't it, this website here? But actually, it's a really good one. This is the visualartscork.com art encyclopedia. It's just really a really good website. It just looks really, really old school, doesn't it? It looks really, really how they used to look. It's www.visual-arts-cork.com. I don't think many people, other people, are broadcasting art history on Twitch, but it's something good that we're going to start doing. And you're here early, and in the coming weeks and months, it might be that it becomes something more and more colourful and interesting as time goes on. Well, it will do, won't it? Because it's art history, so can't fail. Art history is going to deliver. Archaeologists have identified 4 basic types of Stone Age art: petroglyphs, cupules, rock carvings and engravings, pictographs, pictorial imagery, ideomorphs, ideograms or symbols. That category includes cave paintings, prehistoric sculpture, including the small totemic statuettes, figurines, and ivory carving, and megalithic art, petriforms or other works associated with arrangements of stones. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Artworks that are applied to an immovable rock surface are classified as, there's all these words, Parisian art. Works that are portable is classed as mobiliary art. The earliest forms of prehistoric art are extremely primitive. The cupule, for example, a mysterious type of Paleolithic cultural marking. Paleolithic, right, let's get Paleolithic. Got some images, so you can just have a look at the old Paleolithic. This is a photograph. It's not a photograph, is it? It's a drawing. Someone drew it back then. They didn't have cameras back then, so they had to draw pictures of each other. This is prehistoric art. It's not prehistoric art. This was not drawn in the prehistoric times, but this is what was going on, they reckon. The old hunter-gatherers. I always question this idea that they're in on the animals. You know, I wonder if they were more gatherer than hunter. You know, descended from apes. But look, this is the old stone. This is what we're talking about. So this is the earliest art. These people in the caves, banging their rocks around, living a basic life. This is what we're talking about, Paleolithic. Really, really way back. Should we find out exactly when? Should probably just... I just want to know the date. There's so much information. Modern humans. So it kind of, like this is the origin of humanity time, isn't it? At the beginning of the Paleolithic, hominids were found in East Africa by 2 million. That's right, isn't it? That's what I'm reading there. 2 million BP. I think that means BC. Fossil evidence, colonists, technology tools, fire use, advanced tools. Yeah, this is all going on around the same sort of time as the cave paintings, isn't it? Look, here we go. Here's the. Can you see that? You can't see that. It's been cut off on the right hand side. The sculpture and painting section, though, it's talking about. You can't see that either because it's been cut off on the right hand side. And that was found between 300 and it's about 500,000 years old, right? There you go. Now you can see it. Piece of carved rock, 500,000 years old. Appreciate yon art. So we're talking about 500,000 years ago, sort of thing. Yeah. I wanted to start at these petroglyphs. Petroglyphs. What are petroglyphs? They're derived from the Greek word Petra, meaning stone, and glyphian, meaning to carve. So it's carved stone. Carved stone. That's as simple as it gets, isn't it? See if Scotty Hottie can't magic you up a big picture of this. Look. But that's it in relatively big. It's a piece of stone with what would seem to be quite rudimentary markings, but actually even just as simple as this piece of art. I mean, is it art? Was it used as a tool, a counting device? Was it some sort of denomination of currency? Was it used to mark time? You know, what was it? Was it just pretty markings? You know, when you get bored and you just start scratching away and, you know, carving away at your bit of rock. Imagine being 500,000 years old. No, I mean, imagine it being 500,000 years ago and you just sat there and you got like the most basic, you know, rudimentary concepts of anything. You haven't got anything. You got nothing. You like stone tools we're talking about here. You know, just really basic culture, and someone has carved these lines into this rock, and then they're parallel, aren't they? Look, and by doing them in the different plane, the other parallel, they've created these triangles. And I wonder if it was something they've been playing with, you know, drawing it in the sand, drawing these lines, the way the lines intersect creates these other lines. Like, it's like a really interesting early form of pattern recognition. And maybe they didn't intend to carve triangles, but maybe the way the lines intersect create the triangles. Or maybe it means something, you know, maybe it means something that I'm missing. Maybe it symbolises the passage of time, you know, this almost like mountainous structure progressing. Or maybe it's a pattern. Like it's so cool, isn't it? It's so cool. That was the Blomboss. I've got another advert there. I'm going to have to keep closing these adverts. They get on my nerves. Blomboss Cave rock art. 70,000 BCE. Home to some of the earliest known prehistoric art in all of Africa. The archaeological site known as the Blomboss Cave. The Blomboss? Blomboss. I like Blomboss. I'm going to say it like that. 100 metres from the sea on the coast of South Africa. The Blomboss Cave. About 180, I can't do South Africa, about 180 miles east of Cape Town. It's famous for its Rena, where are my legs? No, look, not doing South African impressions. I'm doing, it's famous for its prehistoric rock engravings. Well, yeah, this cave is famous for that. That's why we're here talking about it. Dating back to the, oh, look at that. Mousterian period. The Mousterian. Imagine living in that timeline. The Mousterian. I'm a Mousterian. The Mousterian period of the Middle Paleolithic era. 70,000 ages ago, which puts it among the oldest art ever discovered. Yeah, we got that. These engravings are not considered to be cave art. They're not part of the fabric of the cave, but they are the earliest art created by modern man. The earliest art created by modern man. That's it. That's your Mona Lisa. That's your Michelangelo's David. That's the earliest. Getting there first. That's a tip, isn't it, if you want to be an artist. Maybe they sign their work. Maybe they don't. Maybe it's not appropriate to sign your bits of rock. But maybe they continued their work in straight lines that intersect. Parallel lines that intersect. You know, maybe they made more. But getting early, yeah, they were the first. No one else was doing this back then. No one else was even doing anything. Or maybe they were. Maybe everyone was at it. And maybe this is just the only one that survived. Archaeological investigations first began in 1991. Wow, so we haven't even known about this that long. Engraved ochre stones. Ochre is a naturally occurring red iron oxide used by hunter-gatherers as a colouring pigment for body painting. So they had these stones kicking around. They're not exceptionally valuable to these primitive people. That was some petroglyphs. That's what a petroglyph is. It's a carved rock, and they were the earliest things. There's something else I wanted to come to, because they talked about this in this description, and I was interested in this. Cupules. See what we get. Hope it's not against the, oh thank God. Maybe I should be searching on a different screen in case something bad comes up on the terms of service, but this is world art, this is prehistoric art, so thank God cupules didn't come up with anything weird. 2 girls, 1 cupule. Right. A cupule, you say? A cupule? What are you talking about? These just look like rocks. Let me filter this for size. Let me make sure they're really big pictures. And let's just have a little look. This one's portable rock. A big one. Look, you can see it's been carved into an indentation. Now, these have been found in ancient caves on ancient stones. This is a great big old prehistoric stone that was put there. It's got the cupules. They're engraved on these prehistoric stones. Big ones on the bottom of this big old stone. I think they're in France. That's another one. Definitely, deliberately carved. It may have been as part of, I always think if they're doing something with a stick over and over, maybe it's their pestle and mortar. But some of these are found in positions and things that they wouldn't be useful as that. So they're considered art. There's portable rock ones there, so they may have been pestle and mortars. And these are on the flat rocks where ancient people once lived, so these may be considered to be more functional. They may have been water resource You know, they collected water, or they may have been, like I said, when they're smushing things, or they might have been used for a fire, but they were deliberately human-made, and really, really early, like so early that we have no real clue as to what they were, whether they were arts, whether they were functional. They're just old, 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 old. That's Gobustan. There's an interesting one here. It appears to have all these other lines drawn in and around it, connecting them. I've got no idea about this one. This one says stuff in French, so I can't verify this one, but it's interesting, isn't it? I'm not going to go on too much about that in case it's some kind of futuristic hoax. But they find these all over the world, in ancient caves and on rocks. They're one of the earliest forms of art, of humans stamping their, engraving their. You see this. See how they're on the rock face? You know, they find them in these rock faces. Yeah. And it takes time to do it, doesn't it? To engrave an indentation into a rock. Just a smooth, round indentation. Maybe they were functional. Who knows? Maybe they were functional. But yeah, that's prehistoric art. One of the earliest forms of, like the earliest symbol that we can find on the landscape that man was there. I keep saying man, that people were there. It's insane, isn't it? Mind-blowing. It's like 500,000 years old or whatever it is. 50,000 years old in engravings. The pictographs. The early sculptures, known as the Venuses of Vantan and Beret Ram, are such crude representations of humanoid shapes that some experts doubt whether they're works of art at all. So people doubt whether these Venus figurines are works of art. The Venus figurines, the reason they doubt they're works of art, and they think they might be more like fertility, like luck symbols, I guess. Let's have a look at interpretation here. Some why did they put all these words for me? Don't shop at B&Q, so I have B&Q off. If you want to do something nice, support a charity. We're going to get Patreon on the go for this charity. Me. We're going to get that on the go soon, but for now, look, let's just ignore B&Q. Let's have a look at this interpretation. Some paleoanthropologists theorise that these Venus figures were probably fertility symbols. I already had that. Or some form of primitive religious icons. No clear consensus exists. So, we don't know. 25,000 years ago, prehistoric art, the Venus of Willendorf, carved into a bit of rock. It's definitely a humanoid figure, isn't it? It's definitely got like a head and body parts. And, yeah. Maybe they found a bit of rock that looked a bit like that, and they just, maybe they didn't. Maybe they just had this thing that they wanted to create. Who knows if there were many of them or one or two. A few different ones have been found around the world. So there's There's evidence to say that it was a popular pastime to carve these for some reason. Interesting that they don't have much of a head going on, do they? Yeah, weird. I mean, these might have been prized possessions and maybe they haven't worn well over the years, but some of them look a bit spooky to me. A bit creepy. What did they mean? We'll never know. Old, prehistoric Venus. That's what we're talking about there. So now we've looked at some prehistoric sculptures, some prehistoric petroglyphs, those cupules, the rock carvings. Let's just have a quick look at some megalithic art. It's got the coolest name, hasn't it? Might have to type this one in. Megalithic. Big old rocks. Look at that. Carved across a huge piece of stone. Deliberate, absolutely deliberate. You wonder whether they just started a bit of a spiral and it got out of control, or what these rocks, the significance of these rocks, whether they were important in their lives or just decorational. There's loads of them around the world. Again, this is in Ireland. Some fella there having a good old day on his holidays. Irish megalithic art. Again, Celtic probably. And engravings by Martin Burns, so maybe not, maybe that's modern, who knows. Ancient sites, no curbstones, yes, these are really megalithic. All sorts of stuff going on there, isn't there? It feels like there's something solar about it. There's these rays, that one, and what seems to be a depiction of the sun. There's one of those cupules in the middle. I wonder if something was intended to be set into the rock in some way. But yeah, permanent, thousands and thousands of years old, Irish, megalithic art. Megalithic. That's cool, isn't it? Megalithic. Some people are doing stuff with little stones, making little things. Others are hoying massive, jehusive, big old rocks around. Megalithic. And you can probably see some of these around the world, can't you? Stonehenge, those sort of things. Old. Counts as art, definitely counts as art, that does. Sculpture, maybe, yeah. Design, yeah. Architecture, yeah. But art, or maybe it wasn't, maybe it was purely functional. I don't know. But interesting, isn't it? There's also the, let's not forget the land formations and things that you don't really have an appreciation of from the ground. And who knows, you might be walking around one day and you might stumble across a rock somewhere. And it might just turn out to be some megalithic art, something that's been carved by human hands sort of 20,000 years ago. So then we move on to the Upper Paleolithic, from roughly 40,000 BC onwards, that anatomically modern man produces recognisable carvings and pictures. Orignation culture. The orignation is an archaeological tradition of the Upper Paleolithic associated with European early modern humans. This map shows how early humans spread out from Africa and then up and around and out into the rest of Europe. So it's these second cultures, this spread into Europe that I guess the majority of our prehistoric Upper Paleolithic, later Paleolithic artworks come from. There was an explosion of rock art, including the El Castillo cave paintings. So now we're on to cave paintings. Watermarks on it all over the show. That's beautiful. It's a pretty good depiction. I say pretty good, really good depiction of like a bison. Sort of, I'm not an expert on which animal it is, but like a bison. And actually the shading on it is really good. It's, it shows an understanding of light and shade and how the light plays on the animal, how that creates the form, the image that we get to see. There is some line drawing involved, but it's mainly made up of the shading, isn't it? That's what gives you the visual of the image. So it's quite a sophisticated drawing, really. It's quite a sophisticated artwork. Like, not everyone can just stand up and draw a good bison. Maybe this is the best artist from the tribe. Maybe this is just a functional, maybe this is just a functional image that they use to show, to point out to the members of the tribe things, this is the head, this is the back end. I did see an interesting documentary that talked about these cave paintings and about how they would always have been viewed through, this has been illuminated with a steady light, like a light, and then someone's took a photo of it with their flash or whatever. But when these ancient peoples were producing these images and viewing these images, they would have had fires, wouldn't they? That would have been their source of light. And candlelight, candles, probably not, torchlight maybe is a better word, burning something, flame flickering, that would have played across the image. The way the light moved across the cave would have created a lot of movement and a lot of interplay in the images. Something that we don't get to see so much these days when you see these photographs of these cave paintings. They may be different animals, those several images. Can I make it big? I can try and make it big for you, look. It is just, a simple cave painting, yeah. Maybe done with a bit of charcoal, a bit of burning ember from the fire. Maybe it was more than that. Maybe it was important. Maybe it was just sketches. Maybe it was kids. Maybe it was the most sophisticated artist in the tribe. Who knows? Who knows who was allowed to paint on the walls and why and how and when. But one of the things I wanted to raise about this that I find so interesting is when that torchlight would have been playing across the images, when the fire would have been flickering across it, maybe these different lines across the horses' heads, maybe they would have blurred a bit, maybe it would have created some movement, and maybe these are not designed to be 4 different horses, but maybe, multiples, maybe movement between, maybe it's one, maybe it's time passing. I don't know, maybe there's something in that. Who knows? Maybe there's not. Maybe it is just 4 horses. And this one, even more so with this one, the movement, the time passing, the movement in a story, the fact that it doesn't look like a static image. There's so much in that, isn't there? Like if someone produced that today, if an artist, whacked that up on Facebook, you'd say how good it was, how interesting it was, the movement they've captured. It just, there's something really good about it, isn't it? It's done on a cave wall about 20,000 years ago. We'll never know who did it and why. Let's have a look at that one. The Lion Man of Holstein. Start to copy that. Oh, hello. Didn't expect to see him, did you? You didn't expect to see him? Someone's done a YouTube about it. Mysteries and Oddities, Lion Man of Holstein. So someone's carved that about, 30,000 years ago. Carved it. And he's got a lion for a head. And he's definitely upright. Definitely upright there. Or maybe it's, supposed to be lying down. Looks like definitely upright to us. To our 20th century eye. But yeah. Is it a child's toy? Is it just a, little bit of nothing? Is it also a fertility symbol? Who can say? Who can say? The Wikifur, the furry insight. So that's the first example of a furry. I wonder if that's alright on Twitch. The Lion Man. You know about that now. You see, you can't unlearn this. That's gone into your head now. The Lion Man of where? Well, if I could pronounce it. Hotlandstein Stardal. Hollenstein Stardal. You know about that now? The Lion Man of Hollenstein Stardal. One of the earliest pieces of art ever. Didn't expect to see him today. It's definitely him. He's got a gentleman's part. The Lion Man of Holstein, Hohenstein Stardal. That's one of the earliest. Getting this clipped, right? So I've got 30 seconds to fit in everything into this magnificent moment on Twitch. This is one of the earliest pieces of known art. The earliest pieces of art. It's a petroglyph, which means it's a piece of carved rock. I'm guessing it's rock looking at it. And it's the Lion Man of Hohenstein Stardal. And you found that out on Art History stream over here on Ganji Kid stream. Art History. Mind blown. These El Castillo cave paintings are interesting to me as well. That's just a cheeky little tiny picture, but let's try and get a big picture of this because it is cool. For context, there's the cave. Oh, imagine that. It probably did provide shelter, and the geography around it has probably changed over the years. But imagine being in the cave. That's your home. Maybe it's not your home. Maybe you just come there to do stuff. And while you're there, what happens here? They put their hand. I say these are people like 40,000, 50,000 years ago. Put their hand on the cave, and then they put the colour stuff, the ochre, the red, chewed up the stone, the mud, whatever, like the pigment, and then they go, and they spit. I'm not. It's rude, isn't it, to say spit? But they spit all over. They blow it all, and then they remove their hand, and they've left their mark. So they are real handprints. They really are human people, 50,000 years ago, putting their hands on the rock, spraying all the paint from their mouths. And that's it. They've left their handprint. Maybe they did it on one day. Maybe they came up and discovered this cave one day. They left their little handprints and then went back to where they live. Maybe it was just some young'uns having fun. Maybe it was a more serious. Maybe this was a marker of the tribe and their positions, or who knows? Who knows? Who knows what that was? But it's the old El Castillo cave paintings, and it is old. Aboriginal rock art from Australia, and much more. Animal carvings. It goes on all over the world, and this is where these timelines of different arts will come in later, won't they? I said we'd look at these, so in the last 10 minutes, let's have a quick look at these, because it began in Africa, but it did go way back in Australia and other places as well, didn't it? So we're just interested in the top one here. Paintings in charcoal, ochre and white pigments such as animals, zebra, rhinoceroses. They couldn't just say rhino. They know I'm coming. They got the rhinoceros plural out for us. Rhinoceroses found on portable stones in domestic debris in the Apollo 11 cave in Namibia, at the oldest datable rock paintings in Africa. So we learned that now. Read more. But look at that. So Africa's got rock paintings, 24,000 BC. We've been talking about that sort of stuff. That's Africa. Australia. They're going 16,000 BC. So a little bit later. But this is still 16,000 years old. Yeah. They've got paintings in shallow caves in Arnhem Land in northern Australia of kangaroos, fish, and supernatural beings. Supernatural beings. I was about to say it's all the animals, isn't it? But no, supernatural beings. So the Aboriginals were up to it. They've been getting up to it in Australia. There were no pictures there. Maybe, let's grab. Wow. See, mind blown again. Just right at the end of the broadcast, Aboriginals slam home some absolute mind blowers. I mean, that is clearly a giant hopper, isn't it? One of the big hoppyman. A giant hopper, a hoppyman. Definitely is. But it's just slightly abstract as well in such a cool way. For someone, drawing and designing such a long time ago. It's so good, isn't it? And it's survived all this time. That is insane. Mind blown. Aboriginals, mind blown. And then we've got these, like, I mean, is that real? It looks so... I don't know if that's real. I don't know if that one's real. I mean, that might be a fake because it looks so insanely modern. But it looks like they've got, like, their hearts are going up into something in the sky, and like some sort of supernatural goings on. Yeah, some really hectic stuff. This is a different story altogether, so we're going to come and look at this at a different time. This one looks, again, like symbolic, but like intense. There's some sort of mother figure probably at the top there, which seems to be birthing all these people. Aboriginal rock art here. These people have got like mad hats going on. Is it their hair? I don't know. They're definitely figures. These are real human hands, but not the method that I described before. Maybe these are done differently, I don't know. We've got some really spooky faces, just to finish this off. Spooky faces. Absolute spooky faces. Up on the walls there of like thousands and thousands of years old caves. So we're going to have to get into Aboriginal. That's something to put on the notepad, isn't it? Aboriginal art. That was hectic. Scary. The Americas. I mean, the people go back. People go way back. 8,000 BC. It's not even the oldest, is it? It's not even the oldest, the Americas. Not even the native peoples seem to go back as far as Africa and Australia. Beads made of clamshells, engraved bones and pebbles. I mean, there probably were old, peoples on lands that became the Americas. Beads strung onto cords. Yes, we've got beads. That's your main thing. And then figurines of abstract form. And of course, when you finally get up to 2700 BC, monumental temples. So yeah, that's still probably ancient art, isn't it? But we'll come to that in the next episode. But yeah, the Americans were getting up to it. Asia, they've got to have 10,000 BC, Neolithic potters in Japan. Potters? You see, that's mind-blowing, isn't it? So far, up to this point, we've been talking about people carving rocks and people daubing things on rocks with paints made up of rock. Just basic stuff, really. But in Asia, 10,000 BC, pottery. Neolithic potters. Oh, and it's in the same ballpark, isn't it? It's 10,000 years old. So you'd expect a bit of rustic. They've had to dig it up from the ground. Yeah, you'd expect it to be a bit rustic. But the fact that they've been making those jugs at all way back then, I mean, that speaks volumes, doesn't it? And they're not just rustic, are they? Some of these are quite pretty, quite sophisticated. Neolithic style, that's not Neolithic. This one is Neolithic. They weren't just making these things to chug the water around, they were making them pretty. Mind-blowing, isn't it? 10,000 years ago, people were making pots better than I can. We've still got the Middle East to look at, haven't we? Again, I'm pretty sure they're going to be old. 8,000 BC again. Jericho, built on an oasis on the bank of the River Jordan, is the world's oldest city, with a circular tower and encircling wall built of massive... Like, there's a whole city going on. Jericho. So we've got to have a look at that now. It's an ancient city carved into rock. And imagine living there 10,000 years ago. Height of civilization as well. Height of civilization. You'd have been like, look at my posh house. All the TikTok kids would have been living in their carved stone houses. It began in Africa, and the early art was there. Then people pushed out of Africa into the the new lands into Europe, and art continued in early forms. What we've learned is that we don't know why they were doing these things. It was mainly pictures of animals, stone carvings of figures. It was obviously cultural. It was obviously important to the culture to create these things. They've left their symbols, they've left their marks for us to find. We have their handprints. So that's what we've learned. And it all went on about 40,000 years ago. There was a gold ball there, 2500 BC. We'll get on to the next step in the next chapter, prehistoric culture. Probably just be once weekly, because nobody really gives them about art history except me, but you know, I'm still going to do it. This stream is not like other streams. Getting used to the concept, getting used to just talking to you, getting used to being here, getting used to it being regular, and then we'll start pushing with the content and the things that are happening, you know, the other stuff. But I think it's going well, isn't it? What do you think? I think it's going well. We're here. We're getting used to it. So be good, my little Pukkos.